Great, thanks. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for that warm introduction. I'm very pleased to be here. My name's Colin Currie. I'm actually from Malaysia, and I spent most of the last 10 years in China, based in Shanghai, with Advertisers before I joined Capital A. And for the next 10 minutes, I'd like to give you a brief about our journey from an airline to where we want to go as a lifestyle brand. Now, many of you would know our founder and my boss, Tony Fernandez, and I've been told one of the things that really engages him with his audience during his presentations is that he gives out free flights. So I'm going to copy him, right? And I'm going to give 2 free flights to someone in the audience here. I'll ask a question at the end of my presentation on something that I present anywhere in our network. If you're in London or you're in America, no, you can't fly from there. You have to be somewhere in ASEAN and on airasia. And the most popular destination at the moment when we do this is the Maldives, okay? So we have a lot of people who win the tickets and who are going to the Maldives. And if you're very clever, you sneak in, oh, actually, I have 3 kids as well. But I'll just put that to the side. So, I have been with Capital A for just over a year, after 16 years with Advertisers, and that's a bit of a transformation from selling sneakers here. I'm still a very loyal Advertisers fan, to really obviously selling an experience like travel. And in the beginning, it all started here with Tony and Datuk Din Kamarudin, when they bought over airasia from a company called Highcom in Malaysia with 2 planes and said, look, we're going to transform travel in Malaysia and ASEAN and try and bring a low-cost carrier in to really challenge like the national airlines and sort of the full-service airlines. And their journey was really democratizing air travel through innovation and technology. We were the first to bring booking your tickets online, being able to book your tickets through SMS, been doing things on mobile, winning a lot of awards on being the most innovative company, and really into the last 5 years, where we've introduced technologies like Faces, which is facial recognition to allow you an easier boarding process and allow us to be more efficient. And in the last few years during the pandemic, how we've sort of pivoted from an airline into other spaces. And I'll go a little bit deeper into that in the following slides. But what's really got me is that last Friday, even during the pandemic, airasia just won for the 13th year in a row the world's best low-cost airline. And even during the pandemic, when we've been hibernating, right, the top-of-mind airasia brand is still there with consumers in ASEAN throughout the world about the delivery of the service, the great fun, and the aspiration and the experience that airasia has been given to their customers throughout the 20 years. So congrats to Tony and to all the all-stars for that. So now we're a group that has grown beyond our dreams. We've transformed. We changed our name to Capital A from airasia Berhad in January. And now Capital A really stands for an investment holding company with a portfolio of businesses. So our core business on the slide, as you can see, is the aviation group throughout ASEAN, where we have airlines across multiple countries in ASEAN. We also have a logistics company called Teleport, where we're trying to transform cargo and logistics, just like we've done with passengers on our airline. We have a financial services fintech brand called BigPay. We have a super app now called airasia Super App, and I'll go into that. We have a ventures company called Red Bee Capital, where we incubate new products and services and try and build them before transforming them into the super app. And we have a services company that essentially does in-flight service to other airlines as well as our own airline. our ground handling services called GTR, and then our engineering services as well to also service other airlines in their engineering, as well as our own airlines. So we have a portfolio of brands now and companies that we manage. So during the pandemic, when essentially 200 of our aircraft were grounded, Tony started thinking, how do we get more revenue into the company? We had to pay lease costs, we had to pay staff, we had a lot of expenses to pay, but no money coming in. And this was where really the idea was, how could we transform our business from an airline to selling other products and services that were adjacent to the airline business? So we had 15 million active database, 700 million people had flown with us, and if you have a database of 15 million, we started to think, how can we cross-sell and upsell, and how can we utilize the data and the behavior that we've been tracking with all our customers on our frequent flyer programs, on our various products and services, and how can we try and introduce and bring in to the brand other products and services. And this is where the super app was born. Today, we have an e-hailing business in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Thailand, where we are going up against the likes of Grab. We have food delivery, where you can get onto our super app and we can deliver you food from all the restaurants. We have our fintech on there. We have express delivery, where we want to go up against the DHL and the FedExes in the ASEAN area. We have an OTA, so when you go on our super app, not only can you buy our flights, you can buy other flights on other airlines as well. And obviously, we are able to cross-sell into hotels and into experiences as well. And our vision is simply to build a super app for everyday lifestyle and services. We want to look at health. We want to look at grocer, where we can actually bring fresh food from the farm direct to the consumer, cutting out the middleman, and really understand how can we keep on getting our 50 million customers to stay on our ecosystem on an everyday basis and engage in different products and services whilst continuing to fly on our airline maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year. So that's our vision. We're only early in it. We've done about 1 year in ride hailing, and we've done about 1.5 million rides. We're close to 2 million by the end of the year, but we're actually gaining traction. And what we believe and we see is our differentiation is, how can we bring the airasia spirit into service into a car? So if you take a Grab, we believe it's transactional. If you take an airasia ride, we believe we can put a little bit of difference in the service that you will get in the car like you get on the airline. So watch out. We're going to be driving this in the coming months and years, and we really do believe we can challenge the leadership in those categories in the super app. Again, we want to take the rewards experience where we have people building points, frequent flyer points, and how do we change that into tokens? How do we get into crypto? How can we actually take your points and make them an investment for you? And obviously, you've been talking about 3.0 here. It's about building community. How can we take our 50 million database and build a community on our ecosystem, keep them on our ecosystem, engaging in different products and services? Food is a highly transactional, everyday service that customers engage in the office or at home, and we want to keep people onto our ecosystem and keep them there in our super app. So what's next? Really, the future is about, as I'm saying, building this ecosystem, building this platform and community where our customers can engage with our everyday products and services. We want to really look at the tech, the UX. We believe that is highly, highly important, that people have a really good seamless journey on our ecosystem and on the app, and we'll be coming up with a new app in the coming months as we launch this into the ASEAN region. So our purpose really for the future is simple: connecting people, transforming lives. We're no longer just an airline. What we want to do is connect everyone with everything everywhere. In doing so, we want to serve the underserved, build communities, and transform lives. So with food or with AirAsia rides, we want to still deliver value which we deliver on an AirAsia flight. And we want to do that, and we want to democratize all our products and services and make them available to all. Our vision simply is uniting ASEAN and beyond. ASEAN because that's our home, that's where our core business is with the airline, and also beyond because we are now connecting people outside to all parts of the world with our OTA. Our culture simply is about customer obsession, consumer concentricity, playing to win as a team, a connected community, respect for all, well-being at work, and a place for personal growth. We can procure tech, we can buy tech, but in the end, we believe it's about people. And we'll talk a little bit about DEI, as you did in your opening, but this is the great thing about AirAsia, and this is what I love about it. Some examples here. Logan, who's joined as a cabin crew, is now the CEO of AirAsia Singapore. We probably have the best-looking pilot anywhere in the world. A cadet pilot, a lady, became Miss Universe Thailand, is now captain of AirAsia Thailand. Kugan was actually a dispatch boy. He became a cadet pilot. He's now flying with us as a first officer. Rudy, who's actually in the room with us today, joined as a brand executive. He's our chief brand officer. And the stories continue. People who are actually joining AirAsia are joining the group for a career. They can come in as an engineer, they can end up as a pilot. And actually, with our rides, we're the first company to actually say, with our drivers, join as a full-time employee. We'll look after your health, we'll look after your EPF and your retirement fund, and you can then come from a driver and go into other parts of the business for your career. So it's about people first, it's about getting great talent into the group, and it's about being able to develop the future leaders for our company. Okay, so that's it for me. My 10 minutes are up, and before I start my fireside chat, I'm going to do my question for the lucky person who will be able to fly anywhere, and it's going to be very simple. First person who can just shout out to me the answer, you'll get your flights. How many years in a row did we win World's Best Long-Haul Carrier? Okay, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Okay, right, I will have to, but I do think maybe it was a gentleman next to the lady in orange, okay? So, could you come up here, please? Hey, you don't get a free flight by not coming up on stage. You want to give it to someone? Okay, please come up. Oops.
No problem.
What's your name?
I'm Kenneth.
Kenneth, and where are you from, Kenneth?
I'm from Walk, Marketing Insights.
Okay, great. And where would you like to go?
Definitely.
First of all, married?
Sorry? No.
No, single.
You're lucky. I don't have the kids.
Okay,
Yeah,
so flight for one?
Flight for one.
Just one? Oh, two, okay, fine.
I'll bring you along.
No, it's okay, that's fine. Okay, so flight for two, where we'd like to go?
Definitely the Maldives.
Okay, fine.
Great
So Aziz, who's at the back there, please see him after. He will arrange everything for you,
Right.
and we hope that you build your love with AirAsia. Forget Scoot, forget Singapore Airlines, forget all of that, okay? And just be an AirAsia fan, and take a ride and buy food and get on our app, okay?
I'm excited for your super app, actually.
Okay, great. All right, nice to see you. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Colin. Great story. Colin, I think I've heard that Tony, before he managed to recruit you now, he actually talked to you when he launched his company in 2001. Tell us a bit of that story.
Sure. I mean, it's a bit of an ironic story, actually. I was in Ansett, Australia 20 years ago, actually working for the airline in Melbourne when Tony called me. I was head of marketing there. And he called me and he said, hey, Colin, I'm starting an airline in Malaysia. And I went, I actually swore at him, and I went, because I've known Tony for quite a long time, and I went, Tony, you're mad. Never will you be able to have an airline in Malaysia. The government will never allow it. And the irony is that Ansett Australia went into Chapter 11 and no longer exists, and he is where he is today. So that is a great story. And I would be filthy rich if I did join him then.
And so this has been an incredibly stormy period for airlines and for AirAsia. And you've been joining that company in the middle of the storm. Give us a sense of the challenges, but also of the opportunities, and what has been the role of the brand in that period?
Sure. I mean, as I mentioned before, I mean, the pandemic for all airlines has been pretty harsh, right? You can imagine you have 200 aircraft that are grounded. I think at the peak we were only flying around 10 in the system. And Tony is a real, lover and a responsible person for the business and his staff, and keeping 20,000 staff, in the system and their livelihoods is a big responsibility, whilst having to pay leases on your aircraft and also your IT costs. That's a lot of costs with no income coming in. So the opportunity, and as the Chinese say, where there's crisis, there's opportunity, was how do we get that 50 million database and how do we really work it? And the idea of starting a ride business, which is mobility, it's adjacent to airlines, where we can actually own the airport and take our customers from the airport back home, was a great insight. And then going into food and then into restaurants and other services, milking that 50 million database. I mean, that was a real opportunity. Now, in my past experience in my other companies, a lot of companies wouldn't dare to do that. But AirAsia and Tony and that entrepreneurial spirit about actually, if we don't do anything, we'll die, we'll fall over. Going and taking that challenge and that opportunity and making a business out of that was, a real salute to the business. And AirAsia as a brand, even though the lockdown was there, is still in people's minds. We've won the long-haul carrier for another year during the pandemic. And I think for Rudy, who's at the back there, the biggest challenge for him is how do we get consumers to think of AirAsia not just as an airline now, but as a brand that can give you a fintech business, that can allow you to order food, that's an alternative to a brand like Grab, and be able to become actually a lifestyle service rather than just an airline.
Mm-hmm. And you were referring to the entrepreneurial spirit, which is very much associated with the personality of the founder and therefore with the AirAsia brand. Yeah. I mean, when you think about the journey you've been on since 2001 or 2002, and the scale that the business has reached now, how do you manage that tension between remaining this entrepreneurial brand and at the same time scaling the operation of an airline that covers an entire region or even flies intercontinental now?
Actually, it's interesting. I think the tension is not about keeping the entrepreneurial spirit. My actual job and what I'm trying to do is trying to bring a little bit of structure into the entrepreneurial spirit. It's actually interesting. When I was at Advertisers, I was seen as a little bit of a non-organized leader as a managing director, a little bit more left-brained, not very organized, not very structured. When I come into AirAsia, they actually see me as a devil, right? I bring structure in, I bring process, and that goes against Tony's grain, because Tony is such an agile person with speed, very creative. You could be going north today, 5 minutes later, turn around, it's fine. So keeping the entrepreneurial spirit is not the challenge. That is there already, and because Tony's so involved in the business, that is in the culture. The actual challenge is how do we think about 5 years down the line? Mm-hmm. Dare I say, Tony won't be there forever. How do you keep that thinking, and how do you make that across all the businesses stay for the next 20 years? And I think you can think of many businesses like Amazon or Facebook or Google who actually gone through that transformation. So I'm here to bring a little bit of structure, a little bit of process into the organization to make sure that we can actually continue to run fast, be able to be creative, but to sustainably grow for the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, the story that you were telling about how airasia has started to transform itself over 2 years, I mean, in a way, it defies imagination. I mean, if you were thinking about that type of transformation process for many established brands, it would be unthinkable.
Absolutely.
And it's probably more difficult, more challenging than it appears when you present it on stage. Can you share a bit with us what the sort of defining challenges are to move from an airline to a tech company? I mean, you're a tech unicorn now, I think. No, I mean, what does that entail?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think if you talk about, it's all about people, right? So in the super app business, and I work with the CEO very closely there, and I say there are a lot of colleagues of mine who are in that business at the back, is how do you change that mindset from an airline into a digital company? And how do you bring in that talent and bring in that different culture? And I think one of the biggest challenges is we have to fund ourselves, right? And in today's environment, the cost of capital and to be able to raise funds is extremely challenging. And I think what we need to do is to be able to scale quickly, be able to be profitable. And if you've been reading the press, a lot of challenges that some of these tech unicorns and brands that have been very successful in the last 2 years are now facing is that they aren't profitable. And we are going into our space ensuring that we deliver a profitable business in our rides business and our food businesses. We actually turned a profit for Super App in the last quarter. I think the biggest thing is about talent. How do we ensure we can get the best talent into our space to be able to take us forward? And then how we are able to integrate the airline into the super app and be able to move forward.
Now, you were talking about talent, and I was mentioning in my opening comments the challenge of diversity inclusion that confronts us as an industry. Talk to us about what diversity inclusion means for airasia and what we as an industry can learn from your approach with respect to the talent.
Well, again, when I joined airasia, and I came from Advertisers, a very European global organization where diversity and inclusion was a big topic. What I see in airasia is that it's just ingrained in the culture. I mean, I showed you a slide about how we move talent and all-stars around from different jobs, dispatch boy to a pilot. You wouldn't think that would be achievable in a lot of other companies, and Tony is very clear about this. He wants to internally promote first, and then he wants to be able to give all stars an opportunity to do whatever they want in their lives. You know, we were one of the first airlines to have female pilots, female engineers. So I think the gender discussion, the leadership discussion, females versus males, is very much ingrained in the airasia culture. And we don't need to really have projects on it or a push on it. It's just a natural part of our culture. What we need to do in DE&I and sustainability as a topic is get more green. And that's where our focus is. You know, how can the airline become carbon neutral by a certain date? And that's where our focus is, rather than sort of the diversity inclusion in terms of race, nationality, and gender. I mean, we are an airline across ASEAN, and we have many different nationalities in our makeup. So really good to see that you can come into the company and it's really core to the culture.
Thank you much, Connie. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you much.
Great.
Colin Currie.